Welcome. In this video, we are going to take a look at Chapter 8, Working with Style Sheets. So in this chapter, we will be creating an external style sheet, linking to external style sheets, creating an embedded style sheet, applying inline styles, talking about the importance of location, using media-specific style sheets, offering alternate style sheets, and then the inspiration of others with CSS. Keep in mind as we go through some of this CSS, some of these things I'm going to focus more attention on than others. So as we go through this, I just want you to keep that in mind. So creating an external style sheet, that's something that I really want you to be able to do when you're done with this class. It's super important. Every single website uses them, and I want you to have the basics of not only creating an external style sheet, but being able to write CSS rules with selectors and declarations and properties and values. So let's take a look at this. So we're going to create a brand new external style sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into brackets and I'm going to go File, New. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create first an HTML page that I'm going to use with the style sheet, and then I'm going to create the style sheet. So let's do this together. So I'm going to do File, Save As, and I'm going to put this into a folder. So I'm going to do index.html as my HTML file. And then I'm going to do a doc type. So I'm going to do less than exclamation point doc type HTML. And then let's do our HTML with our language attribute being English. And our head section. And inside of our head, we'll do our meta with our character set, UTF-8, and then our title. And our title is going to be Practicing CSS. Now, also in the head section, I'm going to put a link to our style sheet, but I'm going to wait to do that until we're ready. So next we'll do our body. And within our body, I'm just going to create a very basic HTML page. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a div with an ID of wrapper. And inside that div, I am going to create a header. And inside my header, I am going to do an H1. And it's just going to be welcome to my practice page. And then I'm going to have a paragraph of text. And For that, I am actually just going to go out and grab some Ipsum Lorem. And what I'm going to do is grab this paragraph and paste it in here. Actually, that's going to be down here. So let me just put that there for now. I'm going to have a nav element. And inside my nav element, I'm going to do a unordered list. And inside of that, I'm going to do list items, and then href equals. And what I want to do is I'm going to do some external links, because this is just going to be a one-page web. So I'm going to create a link to ESPN. And I'm going to create another link. href equals, and this one to SI, which is Sports Illustrated. Okay. And then another one. And this one will be, just going to take a look out here. Fox Sports. And then one more. To the Cubs. Okay. So there's my 4 links in my nav. Then I've got a header, my closing header tag. And then what I want to do is I'm going to do a section. And in my section, I'm going to do an H2. My favorite sports. And then I am going to have this paragraph. And then I'll end my section. And I will have a footer. And in my footer, I am going to borrow some of my code from my other website. So I've got a paragraph. With an address. and then my closing footer, my closing div, my closing body, and my closing HTML. Okay, so just a very simple page. Not a big deal. I'm going to save it. And now what we want to do is we want to create a brand new external style sheet. So I'm still in brackets. I'm going to go File, New, and then I'm going to do File, Save As. And I'm going to look for my folder here, and I'm going to name this styles.css, and it's extremely important that we put the .css in there. So I'm going to save it, and now I've got a brand new style sheet, external style sheet file. Okay, and that's exactly what the book's going to walk you through. And if you look at the book, to link the style sheet, they have the link element and the relationship attribute equals style sheet in the head section. And then href equals and the name of the style sheet file. Now, there's some debate on this. And if I go back to our CSS, what the W3 Schools recommends here is an external style sheet be linked with the relationship style sheet, type equals text / CSS, and then the href. With the newer browsers, we don't need that. So for now, let's just kind of go ahead and follow what the book says compared to what this is. Okay, so if I go back into my code, that link goes up in our HTML. So up in the head section, and I'm going to take this out just for now. So we've got the link element, relationship is equal to style sheet, href equals, and then this needs to be the name of the style sheet that we created, which is styles.css. And then I'm going to put a space and a / to close that tag because it's a one-sided tag. Okay, so this always goes up in the head section. It's always the link element with the relationship equals style sheet. The only thing that changes is the name of the style sheet that you're linking to. So href equals, and then in quotes, the name of the style sheet. Now, if we stored this in a folder called CSS, it would be CSS / styles.css. Okay? But I didn't do that for this example. I just have it in the same directory as this page. Okay. Now, some other things I really want to do. Well, before we do that, let's get back to our chapter and let's take a look at linking this. So we've got it linked. Now, how do we know if it's working? Well, we haven't written any styles yet. So the first thing I see here is my body tag, right? So let's take a look at this page in the browser window. And then we can determine what we want to do with our style. So there's the page right now. It's pretty ugly, right? Notice the font in the body. It's like a Times New Roman. That's a default font by the browser. So the first thing I want to do in my style sheet is I want to write a rule to change the font. So my selector, the first selector I'm going to type in is going to be body for my HTML body element. I'm going to hit a space and then I'm going to put in my curly braces. Okay. Now in between my curly braces indented, I'm going to do font and I'm going to do font family and I'm going to do Arial, comma. Actually, I'm just going to do Arial for now. So font family, Arial, and then let's do, I'm going to hit enter after a semicolon, and I'm going to do font size, and I'm going to do 1M, EM, and we'll get into font measurements later, but just for now, let's just do that, and I'm going to save it, okay? Now I'm going to go back to my browser and refresh, and watch what happens to the font. So the font style changed on all text. The H1, the links, the paragraph, everything. It all went to Arial, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. The font size for the body is 1M, but only in certain instances. So what I did there was I said, okay, I don't want the browser default. Instead, I want my font size to be 1M. Now, I need to get more specific with this if I want to change other things. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to put a blank line. Blank lines don't matter. It's just for readability. The next thing I want to change is my H1. So I'm going to do an H1 selector, curly braces, and I'm going to do color, and I'm going to do blue. So what I'm saying here is I want my H1s to be blue in color, font color. So I'm going to save that, and let's refresh this. And now you see my H1 change to blue. Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted. So next, I want to do my H2. So I'm going to do an H2 selector, and I'm going to do color, blue, and I'm going to save that because I want consistency here. And now that's blue. Perfect. Now let's change the paragraph element. So let's do a P tag, P selector, and let's do color, blue, and we'll save that. And it's blue. Now what I want to do is I want to change my font size here to 1M. And I'm going to save that and refresh, and it's already 1M, so that's okay. That's all good. Now if I wanted to test a bigger font here, let's say I wanted to do 2M. So I save it, refresh, and see how big 2M's is. It's really big. The nice thing about CSS is these don't have to be whole numbers. Like I could do 1.3 M's. I'm going to save it. And that's how it comes out. And it's perfect. So keep that in mind. You can do decimals. You can do, for some things, you could do percentages too. But so for now, I've got that. Now, I don't like the way my page is, my text goes all the way across the screen here. So what I want to do is that, remember how we do that div with the wrapper, the ID? I want to style that. So what I'm going to do is my selector is going to be an ID selector. So when you have an ID selector, it's indicated with the hashtag and then the name of the ID. So in this case, pound wrapper, then I'm going to do a space and then my curly braces. And I'm going to do a width of 1000 pixels. And I'm going to save that. And now when I refresh, you can see my page is 1000 pixels wide. It's still left aligned, which I don't like, but at least now it's not all the way across the screen. So how do I make it so I want to center my page on the screen. So I'm still inside my pound wrapper and I'm going to add another declaration. So I'm going to do a margin left and I'm going to do auto. Okay, and I'm going to do a margin right and I'm going to do auto. And I'm going to save this. And when I do that, it's going to center my page on the screen. Okay, so you can see that now. Now, I want to bump it down from the top, and there's a lot of ways we can do this. Okay, my H1 is what's at the top of this page, but I could also do it to my body. So if I do my body and I do padding top and I do 30 pixels. And I refresh, it bumps it down 30 pixels, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So let's go back to the book. Next, the book is going to talk to you about creating an embedded style sheet. So the embedded style sheet is the same thing, except we use the style element and it goes inside the head section. The rules are exactly the same. The difference is the embedded style sheet only affects that page. You can't link it to other pages. Okay, so I'm not going to walk through creating an embedded style sheet, but it's basically the same thing. Inline styles are different. So they're written right in line in the code. So as an example, here they have style equals border 4 pixel solid red. And that's around this image. And you can see it's written right in. So we're using the style attribute inside an image tag. So this whole thing is the image tag, right? So we have image source equals and then the name of the JPEG. There's your width and your height. There's your alt text. And then we have a style attribute and we're writing a CSS rule right here to give this a red border. This only applies to this element in the HTML code and it's a last resort. We don't want to do that very often because it's a maintenance nightmare. So those are inline styles. And the book's going to talk to you about the importance of location. Remember, the last style that applies wins. So, and it reads the code from top to bottom. Inline styles will win out over embedded and external. Embedded styles will win out generally over external, depending on where they're placed, but generally that's how it goes. Media specific style sheets, I'm not going to get a lot into this. I don't want to get into mobile and all that stuff. Here they talk about screen and print. I definitely want you to read through this and we'll probably talk about it a little bit going forward, but I want to focus on what we did so far with the external style sheet. And then the inspiration of others is taking advantage of other style sheets that were created. But for now, that's really what I wanted to do. Okay, so when we look at our style sheet, this is how we're going to write an external style sheet. So we wrote that, we saved it as styles.css, and then in our HTML code, we linked it using the link element relationship is style sheet, and then an href that points to the style sheet. And later on, we'll learn how to style our links, and we'll learn how to do rollovers and all kinds of cool stuff with CSS. CSS is so powerful. One other thing, since I've got this open, where we did this wrapper div, if we wanted to do a background color, I can do background color, and let's do beige, okay? And let's save it. And you can see it just does it to that div, okay? Now, I can also do a different background color to the body. So if I do that, you're going to see how we get that. And here I'm going to do the blue and save that. Let me go back in here. So here I've got a background color of blue, and I applied that to the body, as you can see. And so what that does is it gives the page background blue, but my div is still this color. Okay, now you can see that my text is really tight around that div. So there's several things I can do. On my div, I can apply padding. And I could just do padding 20 pixels and then save it. And what that does is it adds 20 pixels of padding all the way around my div. Okay, I could have applied padding or margins too to other things, but we'll explain the difference between padding and margins and things like that as we go along. But you can see how you can start doing things with colors to make your page really pop. And granted, these colors are ugly. I'm not going to say they're not, but just to get the idea of some of the things you can do with colors and background colors. Okay, that is chapter 8. And if you have any questions, email me, kretz@fvtc.edu.